and I was somebody who knew somebody. That was it. We need to learn to live in the grace of God, because the grace is exactly that. It is something that is grace. It's a free gift given. You didn't do anything to earn it. So you just need to receive it and enjoy the rewards that come from it. You need to learn to just be. Your first purpose, your first goal, your first aim, your first intention, your first understanding of the reason why you exist is to be an heir. Just be a son, just be a daughter. Are you hearing me? Be an heir of grace. Just be. Just be. And as being, when you just be an heir, be a son, be a daughter, we have to learn something. We have to learn that we are supposed to enjoy that sonship or that daughtership. I need you guys to hear this in a special kind of way. How many of you guys have gone through issues or problems or struggles in your life? Raise your hand, everybody. Because if you did, I'm about to give you my microphone. You go and preach, because I need what you got. Everybody's gone through a struggle. Everybody's gone through an issue. Everybody's gone through a battle in their life. That's facts. None of us can deny that, right? How has that battle or how has that struggle impacted how you be? Because for most of us, that struggle, the battle, the thing that we went through has made us to act like someone we are not. We've not remained steadfast in the position of somebody who is an heir to grace. What do I mean? You guys remember the verse Romans 8:28 where it says that he works all things for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. You guys remember that? He works all things for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. All things, both good and bad, work towards a purpose. That word purpose is the purpose that we're talking about now. He says, whatever you've gone through, I work it for a purpose. I work it for the end game. I work it for the intention. I work it because this is what you need to be working out to be who you were supposed to be. And so if we go through a struggle, did you know that Paul wrote, and I know most of you guys know this, but did you know that Paul wrote a big portion of his of the books in the Bible from prison? But you'd never know it if you didn't know it. Why? Because he was, I'm in jail, help me out, send me some food stamps, He wasn't like that. You would never know he was in jail. Because it didn't matter that he was in jail, because he was just being. He could have been on the beach, soaking it all in. You wouldn't have known the difference, because he was being. His circumstances did not define who he was. Who was he? He was an heir to grace. He knew who he was. He wasn't crying when he got into a fight with his spouse. And I'm not trying to knock the fights. I get into my wife, she could fight. Believe me. Y'all know. Some of y'all know. And if she's watching, I love you, baby. Right? She won't come home and start fighting because I taught her she's a fighter. Right? You understand? Like they weren't complaining because they lost their job. They weren't complaining because of a financial struggle, and I'm not trying to make light of that, but the reality is, if that happens, you have to know that God is still putting it together to get you to where you got to go, because you just are an heir of grace. If we are not enjoying the fact that we are an heir of grace, something is off. We are not understanding who we are. You understand? There's a story in the Bible, it's not in my notes, but you guys remember the prodigal son who went away. He wasted everything that he had, and then he came back. If my father would just hire me as one of his servants, I could be back in the house again. The problem with that story is that there was another brother who was living in the house. He never left the house. The problem with that son is he didn't know who he was. He got mad at the father. He's like, yo, I've been here every single day doing what you asked me. And this son of yours, he went away and he wasted everything you gave him. And now he comes back and you want to throw a party and you want to give him the good steak? Like, what's up? You gave him the family ring? Like Dad, I've been here the whole time. The dad looks at him and says, look, this son of mine, he was lost and now he's found. You've been here the whole time. What was the problem with that son? Is he did not understand that he was an heir of grace. He didn't understand that his purpose was to just be. Is anybody hearing me? Like we've got to learn to just be. Like we've got to learn to just enjoy the presence of God. And if we're not enjoying him through every situation and every circumstance, there is a failure of our identity. There is a failure of our purpose. We need to learn, like, hey, man, this didn't work out, but you know what, God, let's do this. Like, whatever's going to happen, let's happen. I didn't want to have to go through this, but we're going through this. You know, we've all had a bad day. You know, the problem is that we're not like Paul, like where he's in jail and he's like, oh, this is so good. I'm free. I'm in chains, but I'm still free. Don't worry about me. I'm all good. No, some of us had a bad day, and everybody got to know about it. Some of y'all got a bad minute, and everybody's got to know about it. Am I speaking facts or not? Like, if you don't know about it, you're going to know about it. Yes or no? Like, something goes wrong, and you catch an attitude with everybody. You guys ever been the receiving end of that attitude? You're like, what I do? Like, you had a fight with that person, and what did I do? Like, why are you bringing it here? Are you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, we've got to learn. I love when I look around, people are like, hitting each other like, that was you yesterday. That was you on the way to church. You guys understand what I'm saying? Like some people be like, like, I would raise my hand, Pastor, but I ain't trying to get into trouble. Guys, we need to learn to just be an heir of grace, to enjoy his presence, to enjoy who we are, to enjoy when things don't go our way, knowing that it's still working for our good. Is that hard to understand? Sure, it's hard to understand. But if you know, because you know, look, my kids don't ask me for permission to go to the fridge anymore, right? Like, they just go, they just grab the food, they grab whatever, even whatever they weren't supposed to grab. Why? Because they're a child. They're enjoying what's in the Father's house. Are you hearing me? Danny, help me up in the back there. We've got to learn to enjoy, or let me say this again. Our first purpose is to simply be an heir to grace. Second purpose is to be a living demonstration of that grace. When you understand who you are, now you need to be a living demonstration of that grace. The second definition of purpose, this word purpose that we've just read, is an object to be kept in view. This word purpose, I'm going to go to my Bible geeks for a second. If you're familiar with the Old Testament form of worship, there was the tent of meeting and the tabernacle. And the priests had the obligation to essentially tend to the Lord, offer the sacrifices, but there was a setup that had to go down. One of the things of the setup, one of the things of the handling of the place of worship in the Old Testament was something called the showbread. The showbread. The showbread, and I found this so weird, and I couldn't get it together for a moment. But the showbread is the same word to use that they use in the New Testament to describe purpose. So purpose means the aim, the goal, the intention, the reason for which something exists, but it also says the showbread. It's the same word. So when we think about the showbread, if God says purpose is showbread, we need to look to what was the purpose of the showbread. What was the meaning of the showbread? Okay, the showbread was an object that was supposed to be kept in view. It was also known as the bread of his presence. The showbread, something very interesting about it, the loaves, they were uniquely shaped. They were heavy. They're like 11 pounds. Could you imagine an 11-pound piece of bread? We're talking about, a cake, like something really heavy. And each one of the showbreads were about 11 pounds, give or take. They were uniquely shaped, and they had to remain whole and unbroken during the baking and afterwards. What was the second purpose, guys? I need you to stay with me. It was to be a living demonstration of that grace. So our purpose is to be like the showbread. So what was the showbread? They were whole and unbroken both during the baking and after the baking. Like during the trial and after the trial, you need to keep it together. Are you hearing me? Like this is our purpose. How do we live as a demonstration, a living demonstration of the grace that we are an heir of God? Like when you go through your trial, that you remain together because you're such an heir, you know it. And others around you, they know you're going through something, but you are demonstrating the peace that surpasses all understanding. Because as you go through the fire, before and after, you remain unbroken. I'm not going to say you ain't going to have moments, but you ain't broken. You remain together when things don't go your way. The loaves, they were standing, the showbread, they were standing exposed to the air for a full week. And because they were made according to the way that God told them to be made, how many guys understand that you were marvelously and wonderfully made? You were made just the way God intended you to be made. So there was a special recipe. And because of that special, they never became moldy or dried out. Guys, if you feel dried out, you're not living out your purpose. And that's not a statement of judgment. That's a statement for us to take a look in the mirror. If you feel dried out, it's because we're not living as an heir. We're not just simply being an heir. The loaves had to be baked quickly so they wouldn't become leavened. What does that mean? They had to be formed quick. Like some of us have to go through some stuff very quickly, really quickly, so that we are not contaminated by the things that would seek to contaminate us. The showbread was always in the presence of God. Let me just say that if we are to be a living demonstration of grace, the grace and the joy that is within us needs to be on full display at all times. Are you hearing me? On full display at all times. I remember growing up, we used to live in Jersey, and during the winter, you know, every now and then we would go to the city, and you guys know, you've seen it. If you haven't been there, you've seen it, right? The storefronts are in the storefronts. They do them all up in the storefronts. Like in the holidays, everybody's got a cool storefront. What's the purpose of the storefront? It's not just to show off who's better down the block. The whole purpose of the storefront, whether it's during the holidays or during just the normal days, what's the whole purpose? Is to show off, to draw in. Guys, we need to be a living storefront. That's our purpose. When you learn to just be an heir of grace, then you can step into the place of being a demonstration of that grace.